anyone else. But there's always something, you know, exciting in the distance, right?
Yeah, we have to show.
Why don't we put your
Oh, cool. That's great.
All right, everybody. This is Amanda Martinez. She is our Enclave Garden Project Fellow who created Cercado, this beautiful piece that we're looking at here. And Amanda, I'll let you take it away.
Sure. So I'm going to try to be as loud as I can, so bear with me. So my name's Amanda Martinez, and this piece is called Cercado, which I chose because I enjoy poetic titles that have sort of multiple meanings. And this can mean ring, fence, or enclosure. And I was also informed by another Enclave fellow, Miseli, that in her culture it can also mean sort of a square or a gathering place.
Yeah, downtown.
Yeah, which I love. So I'll just start us off with the writing that, just the brief paragraph I wrote for the book, because I think it kind of sets the tone for why I chose to compare this work with a work by Martin Ramirez from the American Folk Art Museum's permanent collection. So, in Untitled Train by Martin Ramirez, there is a distinctive rhythm and idiosyncratic use of materials I've always admired in his work. It's really a dream to get to compare our two works. He's honestly one of my favorite artists. So, as a schizophrenic artist, his need to visually arrange and instill order through nested and reoccurring visual motifs is the same need expressed by autistics like myself. It allows the pictorial symbols, informed by his Mexican heritage, to ask formal questions of landscape and machine, natural and artificial, space and subject. And if you look at the image of his work, Untitled Train, you'll notice there's just like such a density of visual information. And I wanted to talk a bit about what I was going for here in the form, but also the makeup of Cercado. So I am autistic, and as a member of the disability community, I wanted to create a space that felt like a safe location. As an autistic person, when we're navigating a public world that's often not meant for us as disabled people, we can often become overstimulated, and I wanted this to kind of feel like an embrace or a place you could safely shelter. I also wanted to create a center object to kind of anchor the work that you may or may not be familiar with this term called STEM objects or STEM toys or stimming, but it can take many forms in autism, and it can be jumping up and down or flapping our hands or getting super excited, or in the case of this object, rubbing a textured surface over and over can help self-regulate your emotions. And I see you stimming now, yeah, which, yeah, this is a great example. It really helps us focus, it can help us regulate ourselves. There's many reasons why we do it, but I wanted to take the approach of making an oversized STEM object that I've seen people take off their shoes and stand on it with their bare feet. I've seen people rub it with their hands. I think all of those ways are great ways to interact with it. But I also wanted to make it, concrete, something that STEM objects are not normally, in order to fit the scale of this work. But also I believe, disabled folks are so often not considered in public spaces, much less public artwork. And I think a lot of the time when work is made with us in mind, it may not be made by us. So I wanted to show that work for autistic and disabled folks can be accessible, but still not infantilizing. It can be complex. It can be many things at once, because we are capable of existing in all of those ways, just like anyone else. I thought it was also interesting, you may or may not know this, but schizophrenia, which Martin Ramirez had, does fall under the neurodivergent umbrella. And there are actually a lot of similarities between schizophrenia and autism. And both of them kind of in public culture really get seen in a stereotypical light. But that was just something I wanted to point out. And I do think a lot about you know, I'm not sure the exact dates of his life, but if there were things that could have shaped his life for the better, if he had more accessibility, you know, like his work may not have existed in the vacuum that it did, which was essentially just work he created from the confines of a hospital. So I also, yeah, along those lines, I wanted to point out that I worked with the curator, Cecilia Andre, to find a place for this work where it butted up right against the asphalt here so that it could be wheelchair accessible. And the weather has kind of pushed the branches around a lot, as people and birds do as well, which I love. But it was important to me that the opening be wide enough for wheelchair access, and then I also worked with folks from the horticulture team who installed a wheelchair accessible mesh here to provide extra traction on the grass, and you can see the grass is already growing up through it, which is great. So it doesn't really affect the piece formally as well. And then the last thing I wanted to touch upon is I wanted to draw larger parallels between the specific choice I often make as a sculptor primarily, which is making an active decision to use older technologies. So Cercado is obviously made up of a mix of branches. Many of them came from here in the park, just cuttings from trees. Some of them also came at the tip of there you go. Who works in sustainable architecture. She connected me with a location called Cunningham Park in Queens, and it's kind of an oversized chip yard where a lot of branches from other public parks in the city go and get turned into free mulch, and there's incredible stuff there, like huge cross sections of trees. So I thought a lot about the parallels between working in this way, which you know, this has visual connections to Inde or Apache wiki-ups. It also has connections to wattle and daub, which is used, you know, throughout ancient Europe. My own family in southern New Mexico, my grandfather and great-grandfather were adoberos, which means that they built adobe architecture. So every culture has their own version of sustainable architecture made from materials in your immediate surrounding environment. And just like Jasmine was talking about, having work that can return really immediately to its surrounding environment without an impact is what I think connects all of those. And that's been my favorite aspect of having this work in this location, is every time I'm here, there's an act of storytelling that happens. I had a woman from Guyana come up to me and describe a structure that they made there out of flattened bamboo. Like there's because it's New York and it is so diverse, it's just been incredible to learn about that from everyone who comes by. But yeah, the last thing I would say is that this way of working with ancient technologies that are innately ecologically sustainable because of how they're made, but also, because of what they are made of, but also how they are made. You can't work this way alone. It requires multiple people. And I think that's really similar to disabled community, because there is something truly special about the way that disabled folks have to form our own ecosystems, because the ones that exist often don't serve us. And I just think there's a lot of connection between, I don't know, I think there's something to be dissected about and learn from about ways of working that require community and the way that they place individuals in community. I'm gonna stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Does anyone have any questions for Amanda before we move on?
Yes. Do you know what will happen with the branches and the reeds?
Yeah, so what will happen to them after
like
this?
when you disassemble
Yeah,
it?
so a lot of them are actually going to be reused in a new work the Bronx Art Space, the show that we were talking about in February. Yeah, and then I believe the garden is taking some of them as well to be reused. And so, yeah, it all gets a new life cycle.
All right, everybody. So if you want to see that second iteration using some of these materials of Amanda's work, it'll be at Bronx Art Space in February, so you can look out for that. But thank you so much, Amanda. I think we're now going to transition to Naselli's piece, which is over this way. Oh, yes. Seema has a question.
Could you talk about the choice to leave a window opening?
Yeah. So I wanted this piece to be. I wanted you to be able to experience this piece from a variety of vantage points. So, you know, it appears your interaction with it is one way from this angle. Side of it, it's different if you choose to sit down or stand. On a simple level, acts as a framing device, but it also shapes your experience with the park as well. Yeah, so I did have one last thing. I was getting a little. I don't like talking to our groups, but I did want to close this. Since today is technically the closing, I wanted to close it the same way that I opened this piece, which it was an act I did alone, which is it was really wonderful being in the park alone when this all began. But now that you're all here with me, I'd love to have you join. It's more an act of prayer or dedication, which is opening up this work and all of us to our directions. I don't know if any of you are familiar, but it's a common prayer for many people indigenous to this land, meaning Middle Island areas. I'm just going to pull up my compass, and I'm not going to say anything. You can kind of think in your mind about any intentions you may have. I'll leave that up to you. But essentially, it's just a really nice grounding exercise as well, and you're welcome to join me if you'd like. And something that I found when I did this alone in the park is that this piece faces directly east, which I wasn't aware of, and which was just a really nice surprise because that is how the prayer begins. So we're going to go east, north, west, and then south. So you can just copy me. And there are often words spoken with this, but I'm just going to do this silently.